Chapter 42, Immen City. Darling and the Time Fairies rushed about serving hot chocolates and tiny star-shaped biscuits for supper. "I'm going straight on with the story," said Angel, "unless you want me to stop." "No!" shouted everyone. Okay then, Chapter 42, Immen City. In Immen City, Nell was taken deep under the ground. She didn't remember writing that section into her book as a child, so she supposed that someone must have added it in later, possibly even as part of their training. "I don't remember Immen City being underground," said Nell to Queen Coldheart. "It used to be all above ground, but when the new inspector arrived, he pointed out what an important role Immen City plays in this world, especially around its meat-juicing facilities. He said that it would be best if they were relocated underground for safety's sake," said Queen Coldheart. "My parents were more than happy to oblige him, mostly because he's the son of the very great King Grank and Great and very Grank and very Great." "Yes," said Nell, frowning. "That's interesting because I'm also related to King Grank and Great and very Grank and very Great. I'm his granddaughter." Queen Coldheart looked confused. "How odd that you've never met the inspector," she said. "Perhaps I have," said Nell. "I know that my mother did have some stepbrothers who went away to a terrible war." After a long journey under the ground, Nell and Queen Coldheart arrived in a gigantic hallway from which they were led to an enormous feasting hall. Inside, various kings and queens were reclining after what seemed to have been a lavish feast. Queen Coldheart looked a little sad to have missed the meal, but she didn't seem to mind picking over the leftovers. Before she'd even introduced Nell to her parents, she'd stuffed her mouth full of some chicken. I just don't think that needs to be said, so let's change that. I think it's a bit rude. So I've changed that to before she'd even introduced Nell to her parents, she'd gone up and down the table, filling her plate with delicacies. "Oh, Mumsy, Daddo, I'm not actually sure of your name," said Queen Coldheart, spitting food all over Nell. "Your Highnesses, I'm so pleased to meet you. I'm Queen Cadabra, also known as Queen Bracard," said Nell, "and I am, in fact, the granddaughter of King Grank and Great and very Grank and very Great. I'd very much like to have a word with both yourselves and the new inspector." "Ah," said Queen Coldheart's father, "I'm King Very Large and Handsome, and this is my wife, Queen Greedier Than Anyone, but I'm afraid you've just missed Thieve, the son of King Grank and Great and very Grank and very Great. Please forgive me if I don't give you the anagram version of all our names. Part of the reason we moved here was to get away from all that anagram rigmarole. Our names are so long, you know." Nell smiled a false sort of smile. "Yes," she said in an arch tone, "I'm rather a stickler for traditions, and that's why I'm very keen to move into the Nickmod of Magran. Could you please lead me to Ethive et nos phonic krang nad trej nad yev krang nad yev trej at once?" Queen Coldheart's father looked rather taken aback and said, "I'm sorry, Queen Bracard, but the inspector heard you were coming and begged to be excused on some urgent business. I think he had to return to Magran. He asked that his apologies be given to you." "Did he indeed?" asked Nell. "Well, if he's gone to Magran, then I fear I must follow him at once. There have been some problems of late, and I will need to help the inspector, or the Roctaspin, as I shall probably call him from now on." "Excuse me for asking, but is the inspector your father?" asked the king. "My step-uncle," Nell lied smoothly. "My own father is a king." King Very Large and Handsome looked anxious. "Of course," he said, "of course." Nell continued, I've always known of my mother's stepbrothers, but Thieve is one I've not yet met. He went away to fight in a terrible war. All the more reason to want to catch up with him now. But can we please hurry? I must find him in order to avert a crisis. Certainly, said the king. I'll have one of my aides show you our new shortcut. It's an underground tunnel which was designed by your step-uncle, as fate would have it. Lucky we have it today. Indeed, said Nell, entering the passageway. I'll come with you to make sure you find the way, said the king. Why, thank you, said Nell. I'd appreciate that. Once they were in the passageway, a tremendous air current carried them in mid-air along the tunnel towards Magran. Halfway along, the current came to a complete standstill, and Nell became aware of an awful stench. What's that smell? She asked the king. I'm afraid I have no idea, the king replied. But I do, said Halo, who had appeared from nowhere, even though I am only such a young angel and quite a bit untamed. Halo narrowed his eyes at Nell. It wasn't very kind of you not to trust me with your son, Queen Kadabra. You of all people, said Halo. Never mind that now, said Nell, looking anxious. I'm really sorry, all right? Yes, all right, said Halo. Now, about this smell, it's a dead thing to be sure, but it's not here. I can smell why treble. It's trying to put the stench of death about a bit to scare you lot off. But don't worry, because I'm a live wire, and no stench of death's going to frighten anyone who's near me. Climb aboard, and I'll finish off your journey for you. Halo offered his shoulders to Nell. Sorry, sir, he said to the king, but I'll have to come back for you. I can only fit on one person at a time. Once he'd got along the tunnel a bit, Halo added, he can find his own way. I'm sticking with you. Thank you, said Nell. I do appreciate it, and I am sorry about not trusting you with Toll. Halo huffed. Apology accepted, he said.